cotton, and the Ukrainians use that as a symbol of defiance. Explain this, Joseph.
But pain makes us human and reminds us what life is all about.
Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. And Joseph, just reading about something that happened on New Year's Eve sounds like good news as far as the Ukrainian military is concerned. A big strike in Ukraine's southern Kherson region, a devastating hit on Russian troops. What do you know about that?
Yeah, Bob, good afternoon from Lviv. There were two Ukrainian counterstrikes on New Year's Eve. One was what we discussed yesterday in Donbass, and then the one in Kherson. It was a sign of amusement and encouragement for Ukrainians, because there was a gathering, it seems, of Russian leadership in territory that they still occupy in Kherson in the south, and someone there in the Russian military was posting pictures on social media of this beautiful country club where they were staying, and their geolocation information was available. They didn't turn off the location services on their iPhone or whatever. And so it was very easy to find out exactly where they were, and Ukrainians were able to strike. And it seems that there were some important Russians that were taken out in that attack.
And I know you want to talk today about cotton, and the Ukrainians use that as a symbol of defiance. Explain this, Joseph.
Yeah, it's a new thing that's developed, so it's here. Everyone is still getting ready for Christmas. It's kind of like traveling in time, but Christmas Eve will be on Friday, and the Christmas season will go on for a month or so after that. And so the decorations are, increasingly appearing, and there's a new decoration. It's sprigs of cotton. You see it next to Christmas trees, or wherever there is festive decor. And this is because in Russia, and when there are explosions on Russian territory, or when there are Ukrainian counterstrikes on Russian bases, the Russian media doesn't ever want to admit that. And Russia is not a free speech society, so they try to cover things up even for their own people. And so they say simply there was a chlopek, which it means a clap or a loud noise in Russian. But in the Russian language, that same word, chlopok, also means cotton. And so Ukrainians kind of cheekily, they are mocking, and what they see is both the limited vocabulary of Russians, the same word with two different meanings, but obviously also mocking the Russian propaganda. And so Ukrainians are placing cotton, which in Ukrainian language is bavovna, are placing it throughout their homes and shops and restaurants during the Christmas season. And it's a little sign, a little hope that there might be more cotton, that there might be more explosions in Russia and in territory that Russia has occupied in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, interesting. And also, we have these horror stories that continue about the injured and the dead. And I know you have a story to tell about, is it a Ukrainian soldier, Joseph?
Yeah, about a friend of mine that, as I was thinking of this yesterday, increasingly here in Lviv, I will hear, I'll either hear or see motorcades of maybe a dozen or more ambulances. And every time you hear that, you know that it's because wounded soldiers, civilians, and children are they've arrived in Lviv by medical train, by hospital train from the east. There's no medevac flights because aviation is too dangerous. So they arrive at the train station in Lviv, and then they're brought to the hospital here to recover. And so, it's a frequent reminder of all the horrors and pain and agony that's happening. And I have a friend who, as a soldier, lost his leg. And he shared these words yesterday on social media. He said, "I don't have the ability to change the world with good words, because what is happening around brings only pain, wounds, and death. But pain makes us human and reminds us what life is all about. After all, we all belong only to ourselves. We cannot force someone to belong to us. Do not look for justification in the eyes of other people. Live here and now. But you should not be too confident, because, believe me, it costs a lot. No matter what, we must live on, and don't forget the price of peace and freedom. We are living monuments that have become close witnesses of the war."
Those are the stories we just have to keep foremost in our minds and not forget. I want to share with you a text from one of our listeners. Can you ask Joseph Lindsley how conditions are in Odessa? I have a very good friend who just returned to Odessa after being in Poland for the last many months since February 24th and the beginning of the invasion, and it would be nice to know how conditions are in Odessa. Thank you, Rich. What about that, Joseph?
Well, Odessa is that lovely seaside city on the Black Sea, and I was there a few months ago. Where, Odessa is, people call it the Free Republic of Odessa. It's a very defiant city. You'll still find music in the streets, as you do in Lviv as well. But since I visited last, Odessa has had the Russians have attacked its infrastructure. And so the city has had a much more difficult power and water situation, for example, than Lviv, and sometimes more so than Kyiv. So sometimes it's common for the entire city to go 12 hours without power or water, but now people have generators. They keep going. My friends run the jazz club there, keep playing music. And so Odessa is, it's a resilient city, also with a bold sense of humor. And people were very happy there. It was last week. There was a statue of Catherine the Great. She was Tsarina of Russia. She helped establish Odessa in some ways on the foundations of an ancient Cossack town, and they took down her statue last week. And so, despite their power situation, Odessa is the people of Odessa are they carry on with their good nature and their sense of humor.
And I love that our listeners are now giving Joseph recommendations for things to do while he's in Ukraine. Ask Joseph to check on the Lviv Cat Cafe. Have you been there? Do you know anything about that?
I've passed it a lot. I'm allergic to cats, so I don't enter there. But I do know that actually that cat cafe, especially in the beginning of the war, we had some volunteers from America, and they liked cats. And so they went to this place. And the owner of the cafe started to connect everyone to figure out how they could be most valuable to the victory effort. And he even the owner of the cat cafe loaned his personal car to Americans that he had just met to drive halfway across the country to deliver supplies. And so the cats and the cat cafe crowd have been a part of the victory effort.
And the generosity of the people there continues to really impress everybody. Joseph, peace. We'll talk tomorrow. Slava Ukraine.
Well, here, Slava, and I'll say it right at this minute, 3:30 in Bakhmut. It's getting dark, and people have to stay inside all night because the fighting is absolutely intense and horrible. So just keep that in mind as we go on with our lives. Thank you, Bob.
Thoughts with you as always.
Joseph Lindsley, world's most interesting man.
This I find in my garden. It's piece from rocket.
Help us to win in the war.